Good morning, race fans. Give you a overdue update on our 97 Subaru Impreza rally car project. I didn't do one last week. We had races last weekend, and that just consumed some time and just trying to stay on par with everything else that we've always got going on. Sometimes maybe kicking out a video might be a little bit difficult for me, but anyway, I'm going to give you guys a progress update on this and where we're at with it. As you can tell, it's currently covered in plastic sheeting and tarp. And the reason for that is we've pretty much got it prepped, ready for paint at the end of the day, Friday. And we wanted to keep the dust and everything off of it, so we didn't have to do too much wiping down and cleaning up before we put it in the paint booth and spray it. What we're painting is pretty much all the underbody chassis area. We've done a whole lot of metalwork, framework, roll cage work. We want to make sure, obviously, to seal that, plus the opportunity to get it all nice looking in one color again before we start bolting everything back into it. So I'll kind of go over that real quick and everything that we've been able to finish up on it, and kind of show you the metalwork that we've been able to finish. And we're basically, we are done with the metalwork and chassis work to it. Once we get the paint sprayed, then we can start putting all the components back into the car. So let me pull the plastic back. So up front, we do have our radiator support bar done. We did have to make a clearance area for the lower outlet pipe. And then we've got the tow hooks and everything on the front. Anywhere there's a seam or anything up here, we have made sure to put body sealer on it. But we've got all that welded up. We did do weld nuts with tubes through these boxes. The tubes obviously strengthen the boxes a lot better, keep the bolts from crushing it, but it makes them a whole lot stronger. And then you're not having to worry about a wrench and a ratchet in order to put anything on. You just bolt it right in. Also easily replaceable. So if any reason this needed to come out, it gets damaged or whatever, it can just get unbolted and bolted back in. The tow hooks are on the boxes at the frame. So they are attached to the frame of the car and to these boxes that we built, which are very well attached to the car. So most definitely you could grab a hold of these and yank this car out of a ditch or whatever it might be. You could probably hang the whole car from these without issue, I would imagine. Moving into underneath the hood. So we do have all of our reinforcement plates around the frame horns up here. We've cleaned up a lot of the seams and put a couple of welds on some of the seams, although a lot of that someone had done before. And we've cleaned up a lot of the edges, got rid of the sharp edges or rough edges or anything like that. Along with, we've added the strut bar here, which connects both of the strut towers to each other, which will remove any frame flex or whatever. But all of this is nice and smooth. Even a lot of the factory edges where there might be a sharp edge or whatever, we've taken that down just to make it nice and clean and smoother. And then worried about the body seals, sealing that up. If any of it was starting to separate or anything, tack those together. We'd also noticed that the subframe mount and this lower control arm mount on the passenger side, I guess the welds on the nuts where they go into the frame, they're in that encapsulated boxed in area, had broke loose and would just spin in there. And someone had cut an opening in order to be able to access that, I guess with a wrench or whatever, so they could hold on to it and take it on and off, which is just kind of a pain. So we opened that up. We actually tacked those nuts back into place after cleaning everything up, and then close that back in, because they would just get filled with dirt and mud or anything else up inside there, which of course could have caused more rust and rot issues. It could make it to where you can't even get to the backside of it all that easily, and it, enough rot or damage to that nut or bolt, then you may struggle with being able to pull the control arm or the subframe or whatever. So fixing that properly needed to be done. As of the rest of the front of the car, I think that's it. It's going to be much, much more safe, more stout, more true, more stiff. Oh no, we did add, because there is no center support here anymore, where the bar used to, bolt in, you had the hood latch, and it would go from the upper radiator support to the lower radiator support. Since that lower radiator support is completely gone, there was no support here. And so this had no strength to it. You'd even go to lean on it to work on an engine or anything, and it would just bend and buckle. So we took some pipe and added some supports off to each side here. And so now, that's not going anywhere. So much more stout. We've got a couple of bolt holes that we have broke off, bolts like fender bolts and a headlight mount bolt or whatever, broke off. We are going to drill those out and either extract them, and if the weld nuts on them aren't any good, then we can replace those. We've got weld nuts or riv nuts or whatever we can use to properly mount everything. I think that's it for the front end. That was actually a whole lot of work fabricating every bit of this. We used Sin to cut all the plates, including the mounting plates that went on the end of this bar, all the boxes. I've shown that before in another video of the CAD files for these. That was really cool because they showed up, even the outer skin of it. I had them already pre-bent, so it literally showed up with a little bit of just fine tweaking, but pretty much just ready to go and just welded all together. So that was pretty nice. Most definitely getting used to using them for a lot of our plate cutting and fabrication work. Saves us some time, because then we can take that time while we're waiting for that to show up and do other things. So we're a whole lot more efficient that way. All right, let me move this and we'll continue down the car. I don't want to cut any of the zip ties and stuff that we've got in place, but we've got the 3-inch angle down each rocker. I'm really, really glad we did that, because when we went to go do that, even areas we thought were real solid that looked like they were still intact, we went to go maybe tack or weld those on, especially on the bottom side, and find out that the metal, even though it was still there, was very thin and rusting away. So adding this and basically putting in these as rockers really, really strengthens the car. Also makes it to where you've got a secure place to put jack stands. And we could go back and put tubes in it and build pin stands really easily, and know for sure that if we did that into this, they're going to be there. They're secure. Where the factory rocker was not going to be able to support the weight of a car all that well, and most definitely would not be able to take the hit and the abuse that these are. And any weight, which isn't much, any weight that does add is as down low as possible. You can't really get any lower than that, which is beneficiary. Let me try to say that again. Any weight that this does add, which really isn't all that much, is down low, and it's actually beneficial because you're adding a low center of gravity. Now, this really isn't a whole lot of weight, but they are stout, they are heavy. It's not lightweight metal. So we did work on the steering column mount bracket some. Not that there was anything wrong with it, other than whoever had built it just didn't add enough strength to it and didn't have it clocked quite right. So we got that better situated. We did put in the square tubing for the seat mounts. What we've got there is weld nuts again, like we did on the front. We've welded the nuts in, so you've got a 10 millimeter receiving thread. Actually, I take that back, 12 millimeter. So a large enough bolt that is most definitely going to hold the seat down. We may even have to open up the slots in the seat bracket itself, which is fine. I'd much rather do that and have plenty of biting force to know that the seat isn't going to be able to rip out of that framework. And the old framework, as you've seen in the previous video, had been cut at and cut away. Was not safe to, securely hold a seat with, say, a 200-pound, give or take, person sitting in it in a severe wreck. So we wanted to make sure that that was done properly. So we've got both sides. We replaced all that tubing and did it how we believe is a much, much safer seat bracket system, at least mounting to the car. The floor pan, especially on the driver's side, had a lot of rot, especially up here where this A-pillar box is. So we've added metal down on this frame rail that goes below this A-pillar area, this door frame. So we've built a box and added that to that, and then added a plate right underneath this box. So it's all tied in and tied into everything we've had going on here with the rocker and all that to make the floor better so it has grip and it's solid, and there's another layer of protection between anything on ground level coming up through the car. We've cut out some aluminum diamond plate and went ahead and did that on the passenger side. The driver's side really needed it. The passenger side is just so we have it on both sides. We did the framework and patch plate and everything underneath that side as well, except for not underneath the roll cage box because it didn't need it over there like it did over here. But we did the frame support and the diamond plate floor pan over there as well. So trying to think if there was anything else right up in this area. Yes, there is. So, and I can't show you, but I'll have videos. What we did here with the roll cage that was already here is the gussets and stuff that they had between the B-pillar and the roll cage itself were just kind of tacked in like 3 places or 4 places or something like that. And we went ahead and welded that and secured that better. So that actually is tied to the car a whole lot better and connects the car to the roll cage much more securely. We cleaned some stuff up. Actually, we cleaned a whole lot up here. We really did scrub the floors down. Once we got everything out of here, we could get in here. Wire brushed a lot of things to try to get rid of a lot of the crap and surface that's on the surface. And then, of course, peeled tape and everything else that was been on the floor. Since we are going to spray it, we need to get rid of that. And the holes and stuff that do need to be sealed, we'll go back and seal those up. The bigger holes, we did tack in maybe some block-off plates or something like that to cover those up a little bit better. But I think that is it for like this front passenger compartment area. The rear of the car is what got a whole lot of attention. So it was really the front of the car and the far rear of the car, although it's pretty much everything in between. But so let's move back there and I'll go over again, which I have already before shown you some of the stuff, but we finished up a whole lot of that and did a few other things. So let me cover this back up. We'll move the camera and I'll show you that real quick. Okay, so let me kind of uncover this as I can because we got a lot of this zip tied down. But we'll kind of start where we left off, which would be this B pillar here. This is the gussets, a lot of what I was talking about, where we had added some more welding. We did the same thing with this gusset here, which would have, I'm talking a third of it never even attached to the car. And maybe 1 inch, maybe an inch and a half weld in a few places, and that was it. So these weren't really doing much. So we've attached those actually to this roof structure a whole lot better. We had found kind of a similar issue with the strut towers back here, where they were not welded or secured to the car all that well. So you'll see in some previous video that we not only cut out some of the factory luggage deck or package deck back there so we could get to it, so we could weld all the way around it, but we added to it and tied the roll cage receiving plate here to that strut tower plate. And then we put plates on the inside so we could have a strut bar, where they had a bar that used to go from one of the diagonal bars or the down bars to the other down bar. Instead, we moved those to the strut towers themselves. The strut towers really needed to have some strength. The car in the rear of it has had enough rot and the fenders being replaced and rot underneath and stuff like that, that we were really trying to strengthen this back here as much as we could. It was obvious that the back of the car had been moving and flexing and kind of ripping itself apart essentially. So we added a lot of strength to, you know, we were doing what we could to really strengthen the rear end of the car. So the roll cage, I don't know if the rules had changed when this cage got built versus now, but it was missing 2 vital bars that really needed to be in place. And whether this would pass inspection because it was grandfathered in for not having these bars, it's much, much safer that they'd have them. So the diagonal bars, which we did in a V, again, I've talked about this before when we decided to do it, come from, because the roof has got a V that centers into the back. You want to start there and then go back out down to the bases here. So we got those in place, which is one reason we moved that strut bar to the actual strut towers. And then from that bar, that's now the actual strut tower bar, goes, we've got 2 bars going down from there to the frame rails in the trunk. So in the trunk area, because both of the rear fender quarter areas were completely rotted, we did completely replace those and built basically these sheet metal boxes, which loses a lot of the recessed area that can collect a bunch of shit, but it was already all rotted away anyway. And so we built these boxes here at the same level as the rest of the trunk. And it also ties this all in much, much stronger, much more stout. So now you've got something to hold this fender, where before this fender literally was just moving. And that was obvious by the way it was ripping itself apart. It had pulled itself from the sheet metal framework of the car. Someone had replaced both these fenders partially. And so we patched those by putting fish plates on the backside of them, where the seam that they had was starting to rip apart. We cleaned up where they had done it, the seam somewhat in the door jamb, but didn't worry about that as of appearance so much, as long as it was together and strong. But we did kind of smooth and clean this out where the seam came up here and then across here. And then we kind of pinched all of the fender edge together and stitched that as needed. And then up in the outside of the strut tower area where it had completely, rotted away, we built plates to go up in there and got up in there and welded those in place. And essentially we built a new box in strut tower section in the backside behind the sheet metal. The trunk liner, and we did that on, everything I'm talking about, we did on both sides. The trunk rear fascia area was separating from the trunk floor pan itself. So we reconnected that. We took some angle iron and put all that back together, along with the sheet metal that we obviously had done in all this corner area. Put body sealer and everything on that, and got it all cleaned up, prepped, and ready for paint. And then I had shown before where we had done this bumper support mount and how it is now very strong and stout. It's got plates on the inside. It's got these support bars coming down on the outside. You could literally put hundreds of pounds on this and it's not going anywhere. Where before it was about to rip itself out of the sheet metal and was very flimsy. We added these tow hooks down here. They're basically the same tow hooks as we've got up front. In the front, because we've got that STI bumper, you can literally take the fog light covers out and have the tow hooks right there. Back here, we try to hang them down as low as possible. We end up going about the same height as the factory tow hooks, which, because of the rust and stuff they've got, I didn't want to rely on those to be the only thing back here. So we added these, and then we put these triangle plates in here to better support them and grab more of this factory frame rail. And so those are very stout, did one on each side. We took the other factory tow hook off of the passenger side. We just left the driver's side one. That one was damaged and just bolts in. This one does have a couple of bolts, and then it pinches around and is welded onto the frame. So either way, we just left it alone. But these are really what we've set up to use. They're high enough that they're still within the bumper, so you really can't see them. And yeah, if you hooked onto them and yanked upward, you're probably going to damage the bumper. Not much really holds the rear bumper on. First of all, you've got a hook and a bolt, a couple bolts on each side, which that's one thing I need to mention. There wasn't really anything tying this to the car right here. You had the hooks here, so that we are actually putting a plate on or a receiving bracket, I guess, on the bumper itself with some rib nuts in it, and drilling holes from the inside down, so you can just have two bolts here and here on each side, along with the bolts that hold it to this bar here. So the bumper is much more secure, and you're not relying on these spring latches or hooks, whatever you want to call them, to tie it to the car. But either way, the bumper could get damaged, I guess, pulling on this. There's no support bracket or anything behind it, so it's just a loose bumper, really. So I don't think you're going to damage it much. If you did, and if you're in a ditch or something and needing to get pulled out, I don't think the rear bumper possibly coming off or getting smashed up a bit is your number one concern at the moment. But we wanted to make sure, just like the front, we had something that was very stout that could get hooked to, that you could essentially just hang the car from. So if you really had to pull this out of a mess, you're capable of doing so. I think that about covers it in the rear. We've got the body work ready for paint. We've got all the metal work and everything done back here. We still got the dent in the trunk lid to deal with, but we'll deal with that and paint it, separately or whatever. We're not going to mess with the green too much at the moment or anything. We're just worried about getting this all cleaned up and white painted on the chassis underbody sections of it, since so much of it is either got rust or we've done so much metal work to it and welded on it and stuff like that. We want to make sure we've got that sealed up and covered and got a nice rust inhibiting enamel on it. And then we can put the car back together. So I think that's about it right now. We did pull the subframe and everything out of the back. We've got the brake lines out. Essentially, the chassis is down to just the bare chassis now. We have all the parts for everything to go back together, including front and rear axles with the new transmission and rear diff and everything. So we've got the right axles to match it up into this car. The only part of that setup I don't have yet is the actual center diff control module. And I do have that ordered, but I think that's the only part we're waiting on. So we do have parts here. I've got the harness built and ready to go. The engine's cleaned up and ready to get put back together and in the car. Well, I mean, the engine itself, we didn't really tear anything down off of it, but the doors, I'm trying to think of anything else. Fenders were essentially brand new. The bumper was essentially brand new. The hood we're going to clean up, but it's not needing any work. The doors don't need any work. We are replacing the plexiglass or whatever that was on the back windows and putting polycarbonate in those. So all the windows have polycarbonate. It will get new brake lines. We'll custom make those. I do have some harness work to finish up. But that's mostly lights, fans, ignition switch, start button to come from the control module, the control panel. We are really kind of getting to where we've got to get the paint on this. We got a few things to finish doing to get it prepped and ready. And the guys will work on that tomorrow so we can probably get a little bit of primer on it where it needs it and then get it sprayed within the next couple of days. And at that point, once that cures, we can put essentially we'll start laying parts back into it. So this car come next weekend should be a totally different looking car. I was kind of hoping we'd get there like that this week. We've had some other work come up that we needed to move our attention to. That ate up a couple days. So I was kind of hoping we were going to have at the end of this past week, we would be spraying it. But, so is life. And that's just the way business is sometimes. We've had a couple of customers, something come in that we can knock out in just a few days. So we jumped on that, got it taken care of, and then now we're getting back on this. So anyway, give me a week and we'll see where we're at with this. And I'll give you an update then.